Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the final lesson on the Batman Utility Belt C# project. This is lesson 2.4, BatMeals. So you'll see that we've covered the main splash page, Comic Sans, Gotham, and the Batmobile. And the final lesson today is on the BatMeals. Okay, so we'll just make sure we've got our code ready to bring up that form. And if I go into my Solution Explorer, I will be able to open up my main project. So as with all of the previous ones, we don't have a whole lot on the form right now. We don't need another big form yet again. We do just need a nicely smaller laid out one. Okay, we'll start first by renaming it so that instead of it being titled as FRM BatMeals, it's just BatMeals. The name of the form is still FRM BatMeals. Okay, so what are we doing in this project today? This one is going to be focused on a simple restaurant structure where we're going to be able to make a whole bunch of pizzas using a certain number of toppings, and then we'll be able to print that order out. Okay, so in this lesson you're covering quite a number of different fields. The main one is about the printing structure, so being able to create print orders, being able to publish to a printer or a PDF, as I'll show you during the demo, as well as you'll see a little bit incorporated into lists and arrays in this project too. Okay, so we're going to start out with making our interface as always. So I'm going to pin my toolbox and we'll get cracking. First one we want is a label. Okay, and this is our instructions. So as with all of the other ones, we want it to be called LBL instructions. Okay, and the actual text that's going to appear in that instructions is something to tell the person what to do. So make your selection. I might just click that so you can read it a bit easier. Make your selection and then print, your order. Okay, nice and simple concept. Just have a little simple description there for everybody. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is create two different types of group boxes. Okay, so in the previous lesson we used a group box for the animated Batmobiles. In this lesson what we're going to do is we're going to use the group boxes a bit more for what they're typically used for, which is to group items of certain object types. Okay, and that'll make a bit more sense when you see what's in them. So the first one, which I've got here, is Group Box 1. We're going to rename this to Group Box Extras. So GBX Extras. Okay, and the title of that group box, simply Extras. Okay, so what types of extras do we want to add to our pizza? Okay, now within this group box, we're going to add 3 check boxes. Okay, so you simply click on the checkbox and drag it inside the group box. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and I might just shrink down the group box a little bit more so it fits. Okay, now checkbox 1, that is going to be our first topping. Okay, and I just lost my setup here right now. Okay, we're going to have that as cheese. Okay, and we want it to say, I beg your pardon, be named CHK cheese. Okay, CHK cheese. Now that obviously stands for checkbox, and we want to have that for all of them. Okay, so we're going to have the second one. Now that is going to be CHK olives. Now if you really don't want to use exactly the same toppings as me, that's fine, as long as you're just being aware of that when you create your project, that I'm going to be using cheese, olives. Oops, that's not check, sorry, that's just olives. Okay, I'm going to be using cheese, olives, and I'm going to be using bacon. CHK bacon, and title text bacon. Okay, so I've got 3 toppings there now: cheese, olives, and bacon. My second group box, I drag that one over now. That is going to be the size of the pizza. Okay, so this one here, instead of being called Group Box 1, we simply call it size, and the name of the group box is GBX size. Okay, and just like before, let's try to match that up a bit so it lines up a bit neater to the first one. There we go. Okay, I'm going to add on 3 more. Oh, I beg your pardon, not checkboxes this time. Now, so this is your introduction into choosing the appropriate type of object. So you can see, sorry about these birds behind me. You can see that I've got 1, 2, 3 checkboxes here. Now, I can have a pizza that has cheese and olives and bacon. Okay, I can have cheese and bacon, or I can just have olives. Okay, but I'm allowed as the user to select all 3 of those if I want. I'm also allowed to select none of them. Okay, I can choose to have no extra toppings. However, when we get to size, I can't choose small and medium, okay, for one pizza. I can create a small pizza and a medium pizza, but I can't choose a pizza that has the classification small and medium. So this time what we're going to do is we're going to choose a radio button. So I scroll down, a bit further, sorry. I scroll down until I find radio button and I drag that one on. And what you'll notice is I've got the square representing the checkbox and the circle representing the radio button. Okay, so in this situation, I want 3 radio buttons to represent small, medium, and large. And because I've put them into a group box, the code will actually already pre-fill behind the scenes for us, making sure that the user can only select one of these buttons. Okay, so we have covered radio buttons in theory, but this is the first time you're seeing it. So basically, a radio button is a frequency. You can only choose one frequency at a time. So we're only going to be able to choose this one, or this one, or this one. And if we click on this one and select it, and then choose a different one, the first one should actually deselect. Okay, should be unchecked after that. Okay, so here's the names of our radio button. You probably guessed them anyway, but basically RDB small, its title or text is small. Oops, and the next one is medium, and the name is RDB medium. Assuming I spell it correctly, good. Radio button, RDB. And finally, RDB large for the name and large for the text title. Okay, so I've got a setup now where I've got extras and pizza sizes, but a very distinctive difference in the 2 group boxes. Check boxes here, radio buttons here. Okay, now this is also a good opportunity to just condense that form a bit because I don't actually even need it to be that big anymore. Okay, so now that I've created my first group boxes, I'm going to create one more label before I show the user what they're ordering. Okay, so I'm going to add on a label here, and I'm going to rename it to, or retitle it, sorry, to current order. Okay, and I'm going to rename it to LBL order. Okay, now under this, I'm going to add another thing you haven't seen before. This one here, a list box. Okay, when I add a list box, this is essentially a collection of items that has been constructed. Okay, I'm going to try to use my graphic design sense and match up the lines so that it's nicely in line. Okay, nicely organized graphically with these ones. Okay, and you'll see that it's got the name of the list box inside the list box. Okay, that's not a problem. Okay, except for the name itself. So we want it to say LST pizzas. Okay, now when we run the program, the name of the box won't actually appear inside it anymore. It will actually load up with nothing inside. Okay, but if you see it inside it, it does have text. It doesn't have text listed here because a list box is going to show stuff that the program generates. Now the idea is when we create our pizzas, you know, let's say we choose a small pizza with cheese, it'll say down here, a small pizza with cheese. And then we add a medium pizza with bacon and olives. Underneath the first line, it'll say medium pizza with bacon and olives. And it will then keep adding more items every time we click a button up here that says add pizza to the order. So let's click create that button now. Add my button on. Nothing fancy about this button. BTN add pizza. And the button says, or is titled add pizza. Oh, not add pizza. up a bit nicely. There we go. And we're going to add on 2 labels. And I'm going to add something funky to this label in a moment. So the first one, okay, a very simple thing. In the text field for that label is a $sign, and we'll name it LBL dollar. Okay, now the next one is another label that's here, and this is going to be our final price. Okay, so instead of having, label 1, let's have LBL price. Okay, and we'll set it up so that it defaults to 0.00. So it looks like it's costing nothing at the moment. However, just line that up a little bit nicely. There we go. Okay, however, I'm going to try to emphasize that 0 a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the font just a tiny little bit bigger. Let's just go with 10. Okay, but I'm also going to scroll a bit further up, and I'm going to find this one up here, border style. Okay, now border style changes, you can see the outline of the box just there. If I change it to one of these other ones, the font, the background of the block itself or the object now actually changes. And you can see in this situation, it looks like it's appeared to be a bit indented. Okay, like it's kind of locked so the user can't change it. And that's actually what we want. Okay, we want to make it appear like we've got something that's locked and calculated to the user. It just looks a bit more professional. Okay, and then we'll leave it at that and we should be good. Okay, so that's our final price. Okay, we've got 2 group boxes. We've got 1 group box with just checkboxes inside, 1 group box with small, medium and large, a current order called LST pizzas, which is going to be populated here. And we now have 2 more buttons that we need to add. One that's going to clear my previous order, and the final, most important button right at the end called the print button. Okay, so let's add these last 2 buttons now. We'll line them up again as nicely as we can to the previous ones and give them some good naming conventions. All right, BTN cancel. And we want cancel as the title. I'll just copy that button again. And we want print. Oops. And BTN print. Okay, so now we've got 4 buttons on our screen: add pizza, cancel orders, and print. And finally, we've got our utility belt button. All right, make sure you get all of those programs, all of those objects, everything ready. And when you're good, we'll start on the code. Okay, so hopefully you've managed to create all those objects right now. There is one that I haven't yet pointed out to you, okay? And that's because this is another example of an object that it gets incorporated into the project that is not visible to the user, okay? And that is our printer program, okay? So what we're actually looking for in this situation is what we call the print dialog, okay? So if you scroll down, you'll see this one here, print dialog and print document. Okay, what I want you to do is add on this print document function. Okay, if we click on that and drag it, just like before, anywhere onto the form. Okay, but what you'll see is it doesn't appear on the form, it pops up down here at the bottom. Okay, and instead of being print document, we're going to name this a little bit easier for us to remember. We're going to call it PRT BAT order. Okay, and we want it to have document true, private and false here in our settings. So those default settings are correct. Okay, so what I've got down here is PRT BAT order. Okay, so make sure you've added that program object as well. Okay, let's jump into our code now. Actually, I'll get rid of these ones here. I don't need them open anymore. The old utility belt ones. Whoops, cancel that. Don't need that one open either. Good, and I've actually closed that one. That's not what I meant to do. Good. Okay, so let's click on our utility belt. You'll see that we've got our utility belt here. I'll unpin my sidebars once again. Okay, and the first thing we're going to do is actually change the library fields that are incorporated into this project. Okay, up until this point, we haven't touched any of that code yet because we haven't needed to. So what are these things at the top? These are all pieces of code that are pre-built or pre-available by Visual Studio to be incorporated into our project. Okay, now there are lots more available. Okay, I have no idea how many there are. There's so many. Okay, but we don't need them all, and there's no reason to incorporate things that we don't need into a project if we're not going to use them. However, today we are going to incorporate something that we haven't used before. Okay, so we're going to add on a few new libraries to our field, and so here they are. The first two are correct: the component model, data, drawing, link, text, threading tasks, and Windows Forms. Okay, but we're going to add on two more now as well. All right, so just like the previous ones that you can see at the top, we do start them by saying use system dot. Okay, then we need to incorporate the type of the library. And in this situation, what we're going to do is we're going to add on a drawing class, okay, that allows us to do the printing. Okay, and we are also going to bring on the IO structure too. Okay, so make sure you've got those two working, okay, and incorporated into your program. Okay, I'm going to scroll down a little bit further now. Make sure you're following along as close as you can. You're always getting these codes accurate. Pause and stop and rewind as many times as you need, guys, by all means. Okay, now we're going to add on a first and only global variable to this program. Okay, so in FRM BatMeals form, I'm going to add on a couple of indents, and I'm going to add on a variable called the total cost. That's going to be accessible by all my modules. Okay, now cost is something that's going to have a decimal value, 50 cents or 75 cents. So it's going to have a point followed by digits. Therefore, we can't use an integer. So the best one in this situation is going to be a double variable type. And we will set it to be equal to 0 with the name total cost. Okay, I'll just give you a brief comment to describe what that is. Data store for the cost at the end. Okay, so something going to be able to help us print. All right, we'll scroll down a little bit more. We'll just verify that we've got some of these other codes. Our utility belt will close the current form and open or send us back to our original one. Okay, and I think the first thing we're going to do is start working on the button add pizza. So if you didn't click on that one before, go back to your form, double click on add pizza, and get your event handle created and constructed. I'm going to add in a few carriage returns. As you know, it's one of my little things that I like to do to get lots of data available to us, lots of space, helps to organize our thoughts and our indentation. Okay, so we're going to start off by creating quite a number of variables. Now these are local variables to the add pizza button only. Okay, all the variables that we create here are only going to be accessible within this module. All right, so here's our first few. It's an integer called I that we set to 0. Now we're going to create a few doubles. Okay, so the first one is called the total cost of the pizza, the pizza cost, and we're going to default that to be 0. We're going to create another one to default our values for our sizes of pizzas, which is going to be 16 for a large, 12 for a medium, and 9 for a small. Okay, now we will only probably use these values once later during the program, but it does make it a bit easier to be able to just change the value of a large, medium, and small right up the top as needed. Okay, our next set of variables, we're going to create a boolean, okay, that we're going to ask, are there any extras to add to this pizza, either true or false? Okay, we're going to create a string to actually store the value of the extras. Now that'll be able to add, cheese and olives and stuff as a phrase to be added to our list later on. But for the time being, it is an empty string. There's nothing in it. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to create an array to store the pizza sizes. Okay, something that's going to be nicely organized later on. Okay, so when we create an array, the syntax to create something is still basically the same. You create the data type followed by the name of the object equals followed by the values into that variable. However, with an array, you've got to add on some brackets to indicate that the array is going to store multiple items. Okay, so as we know, an array is a data type structure. Sorry, an array is a structure that can hold multiple instances or multiple values of the same data type. Okay, so in this situation, we are creating, we are creating an array called size. So let's move that out of the way. Okay, an array called size, so a list of items called size that can store the following values: large, comma, medium, and small. Okay, so this array named size is called, this array called size can store 3 values: large, medium, and small. So what we've actually got, and I'm just going to give you these comments here so you can understand what is stored at what location. So in position 0 of size is the value large. Okay, in position 1 is the value medium, and in position 2 is the value small. Okay, so why are we going to use that? Well, you'll see later on that we incorporate this by using the variable so that we only have to point to size each time. We don't have to point to large or medium or small, and we can reuse the code more effectively. Okay, now when we've got an array that only has 3 values, there's not a whole lot of advantage, but when you've got an array that has 3,000 values, you will notice significant increases in your code and the efficiency of how it works. Okay, so additionally, you'll see that even though it's an array that has 3 elements, because it starts at 0, the final element is at position 2. Okay, so this is position 0, position 1, and position 2. Okay, something that does trip up a few students, mostly because sometimes arrays start at 0, or arrays start at 0 in code, but in pseudocode they typically start with 1. So this, if it was pseudocode, it would be size 1, size 2, and size 3, and that's probably what you'd see in the HSC exam as well. Okay, but when you're talking about coding, always start with 0. Okay, now next one. We're still not finished starting a few things just yet, so we're going to ask, what is the pizza size that was chosen? Okay, that's the first one. Now, if the size was large, this is what we want to do. So if rdb.checked. Okay, now remember when we talk about a object that is a Boolean variable, the default condition response here is true. So I could just say, if it's true, it should still work as well, but the default condition response is true. Now, how can I have rdb large.checked? That's not a Boolean variable. Well, actually it is. Okay, so these things here, rdb small, rdb medium, large, these are actually objects with Boolean results. They either have checked or not checked. You can see in the properties that I've got checked here, and the only 2 values I can choose from that are true and false. So a checkbox can have a Boolean value assigned to it, and that value is called checked. So in this situation, if rdb large.checked was true, obviously I've chosen a large pizza. Okay, so what I want here is I want to assign my pizza cost, okay, to be equal to the large pizza. Okay, and I'm going to set my I, which is my index position, to be equal to 0. So what does that mean? It means that I'm pointing to that field there. Okay, I'm pointing to that field. All right, now, similarly, if I want to have the medium chosen, I've got else if rdb medium.checked. I'll just copy that code there, put it in here, and I don't want it to be large, I want it to be medium, and my integer position is position 1. Oops, not capital M, sorry, lowercase m. Keep in mind of the syntax that you construct when you do these things. Okay, now if they haven't chosen large and they haven't chosen medium, they must have either chosen nothing or small, but they've clicked add pizza, so theoretically they've chosen something. So we're not going to bother asking if the small was checked, we're just going to say else. Okay, and we want it to have pizza cost equals small pizza, and that's going to be in position 2. Okay, so you can see size position 2 is small, size position 1 is medium, size position 0 is large. 0, 1, 2, just there like that. Okay, now we've checked to see what type of size of pizza they want. Now we need to ask about all the toppings. Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit complicated. Essentially, we need to figure out that they've added cheese and olives and the other one, bacon, or cheese or olives and bacon and cheese and or olives. You know, it can be any combination of them. So we're getting a little bit more complicated now. So essentially it's going to be asking kind of the same way. We're going to ask if the cheese or the pizza or the bacon checkboxes were checked. Okay, and we're going to add the prices as necessary. So what we want to do is we're going to go if chk cheese, oops, sorry, I'm in brackets now. Chk cheese dot checked. Oh, I'm going for that. So if they choose cheese, okay, we're going to add something to the pizza cost. So we're going to go pizza cost plus equals 50 cents or 0.5. Okay, now I'm going to point out here that I've got medium pizza, large pizza defined here because I've created them as 16, 12 and 9. Why don't I just create something that says, you know, double extras equals 0.5? Okay, well, I could do that. Okay, but what I'm trying to point out now is I'm actually going to ignore that. Well, I can't have extras because I've used it twice. I might just say, you know, extra topping, for example. Okay, now why can't I do here pizza cost plus equals extra topping? Well, I could add that phrase to it, and it would be the better way to code. But what I'm actually going to do is specifically leave it out so you can see just how many times I have to use this, and if I needed to change it, it would be more annoying. Okay, so I've got pizza cost equals or plus equals 0.5, and I'm going to change my settings so that extras was true. Okay, so basically it doesn't matter what the extras were, I'm just going to say that, yeah, at least an extra was chosen. Okay, now I'm going to copy that fragment of code and paste it 2 more times. Okay, and I'm going to make it so that cheese becomes olives and cheese becomes bacon. Now, why did I just do it this way? Okay, you'll be able to see that I've got if, else, and that's because I'm pointing to radio buttons, because I can't choose large and medium. However, I've got if in this situation because I can have any or all 3 of these different checkboxes. Okay, now, you'll notice here I've got pizza cost plus equals 0.5, extras equal true. Pizza cost plus equals 0.5, extras equal true, over and over again. I've actually got the same block of code now here 3 times, okay? What it would have been far better to say, if the cheese is checked, point to a module that does that function. If the olives are checked, point to a module that does that function. If the bacon is checked, point to a module that does that function. So basically, I could have a module, you know, like private void, okay, extra, and then not private, that didn't come out well at all, did it? Private void extra, okay, I open the brackets, and now I've got that code in there here as well. Okay, I'd have to put it down somewhere else, and then all I'd have to do would be to change it the 1 time if I needed to do something. But I don't want to do that because I'm actually explicitly leaving it off to show you bad ways of coding in this example. Okay, see how I've got, if my boss told me you have to change it now, the extras have become 60 cents, I have to change it 3 times. Okay, so it's actually a poor way to write that code, but I wanted to leave it in there as an example to show you this is a bad way of doing something. Okay, if I scroll down just a little bit more, I've now done my bacon. I'm going to add on the price of my extras now. Okay, now this is, I've already gone through. If I've added cheese and bacon, for example, I've added 50 cents. This part was false, so I've entered this one and added another 50 cents. So for example, basically whatever pizza I chose, small, medium or large, I've now added $1 to it on top of it. Okay, so I have to actually add that phrase back into it. So let's create a variable called string. I'll call it str pizza, and it's going to be equal to the pizza cost, okay, which is the variable that was up higher, okay, and I'm going to convert it to a string data type. But because it was a double in the situation before, I need to convert it into something I can print, and the syntax of this is a little bit complicated, so just be careful. It's actually a $ followed by an F with the brackets like that. Okay. Quite complicated. It has to do with converting between floating points and all that kind of stuff. Just be able to keep that format there for you. Okay, so this is how to convert a double variable back to a string. Okay. Next one we're going to do. Oops. We're nearly finished inside this module, by the way, and in case you've forgotten, we are still inside, just getting a little bit lower, inside this button, add pizza. Okay, so all this program is doing right now is figuring out the cost of the pizza, and the last step now is adding it into the list box. Okay, so let's add the price first to our output for the user. So format the text in the label as the currency. Whoops. Okay, and we're going to go LBL price dot text equals str pizza. And so whatever I've got in there, we're good. All right. Now we've got our function up here that said extras equal true. So if the user added extras to our program, not to our program, beg your pardon, to the pizza, if they added an extra, we just want to say str extras equals with extras. Now we could make that code a lot more complicated and actually specifically outline the phrase, with cheese and olives. Okay, but that's getting a little bit too complicated right now because I'm going to do something a bit later on that does effectively a similar task anyway. And if you wanted to try to figure that part of that Bruce program out, I'd encourage you to try to do that. Okay, so let's now output the result. Okay, output the items onto the lines in the list. So effectively, we're basically adding them to the array now. Okay, LST pizzas. Okay, remember that's the list box we're pointing to, and we want to do items dot add. Okay, so we're adding something to our list box, and here's now how we're going to add it. We're going to look at the size that's in our array. Okay, so whatever size the user chose, whether they had 0, 1, or 2, which points to small, medium, or large, we're going to choose that. And I'm going to say it's going to be a small, medium, or large pizza with the extras if that part of it was there or not. Now, string extras was going to be blank if they didn't have extras on it. Plus, oops. So now the dot represents the end of the sentence. Now we're going to have a $ to indicate that this is how much they have to do, plus the actual value that the system had worked out for them to be as the price of their pizza. Okay, so our final total order cost is going to be all of the string pizzas, the pizza costs added together, whether they add 1, 2, or 10 pizzas. So we need to add the cost of the string pizza to our total cost each time. Okay, now we're not going to output this total cost just yet. That's going to appear later on once we print it. Okay, so total cost equals total cost plus str pizza. Oh, beg your pardon, not str pizza. pizza cost. That's the variable we needed. Okay, and you could have just said total cost plus equals pizza cost. Okay, and that would have done the same thing. Okay, I'll leave it to you, whichever line makes more sense for you. Okay, so that is all of the add pizza button. I might just save my solution right now. As you know, this is a slightly longer program. We actually aren't really close to the finish just yet. I'm going to add a couple more. I'm going to do a nice setup because we're going to start to do our clear option very soon. So I'm just looking for it right now. Basically, we want to go back to our project. We want to click on cancel. Where have I got it? Cancel orders. Okay, double click on cancel. In my cancel option, I'm going to run a program called clear orders. Okay, and now I'm going to write a module called clear orders. Okay, so private void clear orders. Okay, and the clear order function simply removes everything from the list box. Okay, so lst pizzas dot items dot clear. Okay, now why didn't I just do that line? Okay, why didn't I just do it in the cancel? Well, yeah, I could have. Okay, but I'm actually going to use this module again inside my print function as well. So I want to be able to reuse this module as many times as I need. Okay, I'm going to save that one just now, and I'm going to pause it right there. And the next thing when we come back to it, we're going to work on the printer section of this. Okay, so let's just make sure you've got all of that code ready. We've covered the variables in the add pizza. Okay, we've asked the question, is it large, medium, or small? We've asked the questions, did they have cheese and or olives and or bacon? And if they did, we've outputted that result, populated the list box through a use of a simple array, and we've cleared the orders as necessary. Okay, make sure you've got all that part of it working. When we come back, we're going to do our print function. Okay, so hopefully everyone's ready now to do the printing. This is still got quite a bit of code to go in this situation. There are some strange things in this section because of the printing that you've probably never seen or even really thought about before. The strangest thing is that you have to create the concept of printing and the idea of how to put ink onto the page. Okay, so we have to talk about things like the brush level that go onto the page, all that sort of detail. Okay, now that tends to happen every time, or will happen every time you try to print something. It just happens so quick that it's just so invisible to us. Now, I mentioned just in a moment ago we're using the clear orders. Okay, we are actually going to run this program when the form loads as well. So I'm just going to copy that fragment. I'm going to scroll all the way back up to the top of my form. I don't have the form load here at the moment. If I go back to my object and I double click on the empty section of the form, you'll see that it's got FRM BatMeals load. Okay, now when the form loads, I actually want to clear all the orders as well. Okay, it's just a nice clean way of making sure everything is empty as soon as we loaded that form. Okay, now let's go back to our project and let's now start adding some code to our print button. Okay, we haven't covered this print order just yet. That will be the next thing. We're going to click on the print BTN print button so that we've got our click event created. Okay. Sorry, a lot of cars right now. We're going to start by asking the user to check first that they've actually got a printer installed. So we're trying to handle user error in this program as well. If they try to print something and they don't have a program, it's going to make it a bit problematic. So we're going to incorporate something you haven't seen before. It's called a try catch. Okay, and here's our first piece of comment to help you out. So in case the user has no, oops, not now, has no printer configuration established. So basically we want to make sure that they are able to print something if they choose print, okay? Because, you know, you never know what's going to happen. So we're going to use a try catch. Now the first one is try, okay, and we have our big brackets that open up. Okay, I actually don't need that section just there. I'm going to get some more space just down here. All right, so try catch. Now, first of all, let's create a new instance of a print object and load the event handler. Okay, so let's create a concept. So let's go print document. We're going to do PRT bat order. And if you could recall, that is actually the name that we used for that object before. Equals a new print document class. Okay, print document PRT bat order equals a new print document class. Okay, now we've got PRT bat order dot print page plus equals, whoops, new print page event handler, and it's going to be the PRT bat order underscore print page. Okay, so basically when that's being used, that's when we want it to happen. All right, scroll down a little bit more. I'll just do that just there. We haven't actually created that print page yet. That's why you got that error. That's okay. You can ignore that for now. Okay, so which printer do they want? So which printer window for the user? We want to open up the dialog window. Okay, so remember, if you click on print, it should show the default window that asks them to, you know, choose the printer and how many pages and what sides and all that kind of stuff, depending on what system they're using. So this is where we go print dialog. Okay, dot print window. Okay, equals new print dialog. Okay, and print window. Oops. Oops, dot document equals PRT bat order. Okay, once again, don't worry too much about these errors that are popping up just now. It simply just says we don't know what they are at this point, and we will get to them soon. I also haven't even got the catch down there yet either, which is why that error is showing up. Okay, so which printer window for the user? Now we want to do, you know, did they select a printer? If the user selects a printer. Alright, so if print windows, whoops, not window, print window dot show dialog is equal to dialog result.ok. That probably seems a little strange. Essentially it's asking, did they choose something, and press the OK button. Okay, so if they've done that and it pushes OK, then they should theoretically have chosen something. And we want to load that specific printer to the function. So load the printer format function, which is PRT bat order dot print. Okay. Otherwise, if they did not choose something, we want to do an error message back to the user. Message box dot show, oops, dot show print cancelled. Okay, so they opened up the print box and then they actually said cancel because they did not push OK. Okay, the only way to get out of that window is to not push OK, is to push cancel. All right, so we've done that try. I'll just show you where we're at right now. You can see that that try has lined up with this line here. So if I scroll a little bit further down, this is where now I want to put my catch. Okay, and if they have not, if they have not got a printer configuration established, we want to show a message box that says something along the lines of that, and it might just say check printer configuration, or your printer's not installed, or something like that. Okay, so that we've handled the user error, so that they are able to print, and we know that the program is not the problem, it's the user who doesn't have a printer set up, for example. Okay, now remember there's still a couple of little errors just there, and we'll come back to those in a moment. Alright, I'm going to go back now to my object, because we are going to print now by using our PRT order function. Okay, so what you want to do is simply double click on your PRT bat order, and you should see that it's got print page here as your event handle. Okay, and you can see that that error at the top has now disappeared. Okay, so that's a good start. All right, so let's go into this one now. Oops. Okay, the other ones should have disappeared. Oh, another one. I've got print dialog dot print window. There's a typo just there. Take that dot out, please. So if I just have it so that it's got print dialog print window, that's why they've now disappeared. Okay, so I've created a new variable called print window. Sorry about that one. Okay, now that I've got my PRT bat order print page, I can start to construct the concept of what my page will look like so that it can be printed. Okay, now that's it sounds a bit complicated. You don't have to define everything. You don't really have to define what a brush is or what graphics are, but we do need to add them to our page so that the page knows what's going to be used. Additionally, I'm going to show you how to incorporate a picture so that we can actually have a logo appear on our final print as well. So I'm just going to use that same Batman logo that we used in the first splash page, so that we're not adding more data into our project. Okay, so here's the beginning of it. So we're going to declare some font classes. Okay, oops, not new font classes. Declare new font classes for the document. Okay, and here we go. So a font, and we're going to call it print font, is going to be a new font of the types Arial. Oh, not sure what happened there. New font of the types Arial, and size 18. Okay, the next one is going to be a font for printing the font title. So print font title. So the first one, print font, that's going to be most of the text that appears on our page. The title is going to be the one up the top, so that we can declare something to be a little bit bigger and bolder to indicate that it's going to be the title. And now theoretically, you should actually have all of your project in exactly the same font. Okay, it's just good graphics design to have everything, all the same font. I'm specifically not doing that just to show you that you can do different ones for now. So I'm going to make it so the font is actually Courier, and it's going to be size 24, and it's going to be in bold. So font style dot bold and font style dot underline. Okay, now remember, that it's probably not the nicest way to make things appear that way, but I'm just try to remember that I'm trying to show you as many different things as I can in one concept. Okay, and the last one we want is a print font for the total that appears at the bottom. Okay, now you could create all of your own, font classes and, put the settings however you wanted. Okay, you could create it so that there was a new font for every different type of pizza if you really wanted to. I'm only trying to make it so that you've got a couple of different examples, and just trying to make it clear for you all. So once again, we want bold for the total, but that's all. Actually, that obviously doesn't need to be on the next line. You can read that fine. Okay, so Times New Roman, size 24, and font bold. Okay, next thing we want to do is we have to declare what we call a brush stroke. Okay, so what colors do we want to use? You can choose whatever colors you want. In this project, I'm going to choose black and red, just so that we can see the distinction between the way it was changed in our final project after it's created. So we're going to declare our brush strokes. New brush stroke class with colors. Okay, and we want a solid brush class type that we're going to call, brush black. Okay, and that's going to be a new instance of that class type, and it's going to be black. Okay, obviously we're using the United States spelling at the moment. I'm just going to redo that line again, but instead of black, I want it to say red, so that I've got a red brush and a black brush. Okay, now I need a couple of variables. So I want an integer to indicate the number of pizzas that I'm going to have to print occur into my line, and that is going to be equal to how many items I have in my list box. Okay, so there's going to be LST pizzas, not list, LST pizzas dot items dot count. Okay, I also want to have an integer called the current y, referring to our y position, and I want that to be equal to 65, and that'll make a little bit sense later. Okay, so integer current y equals 65, and the last variable is a string called line. Okay, and this is a little bit strange because I'm literally going to create a line by putting in a whole bunch of dashes. Okay, so basically what I'm doing now is I'm creating some lines so that when I print, it'll actually have those lines at certain points on the page. And that's nothing more than just trying to make it look a little bit nicer when we print it. Okay, next one. Let's add the company logo. So printing the company logo. And as I said, we're just going to incorporate the picture that we had before. Okay, so I'm going to create a new concept of a bitmap class, and I'm going to call it image Batman. Oops, not Batman. Image Batman, and it's going to be equal to a new bitmap class, or a new instance that is actually in my project properties. Okay, under resources, and the name, of my picture. Okay, so this is the name of my project, the namespace that I'm in case you've forgotten. You can move all the way back up to the top and you can find that again, Batman Utility Belt. Okay, and in my Solution Explorer, I've got resources and I've got Batman. That's that picture from the first front page. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm pointing, where am I? I'm pointing back to that picture. Okay, that's all I'm doing right now. Now, where does it need to occur? It needs to occur at a location. Not print action, that's point. So sometimes the tab across just doesn't do the word phrases or keywords that you want it to do. Okay, in this situation, I want point location equals a new location at 400 across and the current Y position that I created. Now that means that I can change it later on if I need to. Okay, so point location is common for that, and I need to also use the concept of a graphic to be able to incorporate that. Okay, so in order to put a picture onto a screen, I need to incorporate the graphics class, which asks you, well, what is the picture that you want to do and what is the location that you want to do. So I've created the concept of a location as an X and Y position. Okay, and I'm going to incorporate the graphics dot draw image module. oops, sorry. And I want it to be the image Batman variable, Batman bitmap that I just created, which is that one just there. And it needs to be at position lock or loc. Okay, now you might have an error now that doesn't look like mine, and if you have, it's probably because you forgot to do this part up the top. Okay, system.drawing.printing, which I'm actually thinking, yep, no, that was fine. Okay, so if you forgot to do that, you've probably got an error appearing right about now. Okay, so make sure you did include that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start to coordinate what the page will look like. So we've created a whole bunch of settings of how to use functions and graphics and positions and everything that goes on the page. Now we need to define where and how many times and what locations they will appear on the page. Okay, so we've printed the company logo. Let's now print the title. Okay, and that's going to be using e.graphics.drawString again. Sorry, not again. .drawString, and it's going to be the title, Batman's Pizza Shop. Then the next one is, okay, so let's, before I type it out, I just want to point these out. So you can see void graphics.drawString, string s, font, brush, point, f, point. Okay, so it's actually in the situation here for Visual Studio, it's actually saying these are the 4 arguments or 4 parameters that you need to give me in order for me to understand how to use the drawstring. So the first one is the string, which is what's the text you want me to actually say. The next one is what type of font class do you want me to use, and it's going to be defined as one of the classes that we wrote out earlier. In this situation, we're talking about the title, so we want to use our print font title class or instance of that class that we created. We want to use the, we want to use the black brush stroke class that we chose, and our position is going to be 10x and current y, okay, or 65. Okay, I might just hit carriage return. You can see all of those hopefully on the page now. Yep, there we go. Okay, so the graphics drawstring, Batman's Pizza Shop, using the font title class in color black at position 10, x current y 65. All right, next one. We are using current y repeatedly because we are actually going to make it so that it always keeps moving down the page. Now, if we keep something at the same y position each time, it's going to print over the top of the same line over and over and over again. Okay, but by using this current y, we can keep adding to that without having to explicitly point to individual locations on the page. All we have to do is increment y by a certain number of pixels each time. Okay, so current y is now going to be equal to 50 points lower. Okay, now when you actually go down, you actually have to say plus the number. Okay, so I'm adding 50 to y. So if you remember before, y was equal to 65. So now current y plus 50 is going to be equal to 115. Now in coding, the top of the page is 0. So it doesn't actually go 0, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. It goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down to the bottom of the page. That's because the top left corner of the page, okay, that's your left up there, isn't it? The top left corner of the page is position 0, 0, okay, and as we go down the page, we add numbers to it, okay, and as we go across the page, we add numbers to it. So down here, that's going to be the highest number in that bottom right corner. Okay, so get out of that kind of XY coordinate concept from mathematics where the origin appears in the center of the page or the center of the screen, and you go up, when you go down, you go left, right, and then left. Okay, in coding, all you do is start at the top corner and move across or move down. Okay, so in here, current Y, when I add 50 to it, I'm actually going 50 pixels down the page. Okay, so I've printed the title. Now I want to print the line, okay, just to make it, I put my title, now I'm going to put a line across the page. So basically I just want something similar to this. I'm going to do graphics again, and I'm going to do the drawstring, but instead of doing the Batman's pizza shop, I'm just going to choose my line, which is this thing up the top. Okay, I want it to also say print font title, brush black, 10 and current Y again, so the rest of it is correct. And I also want it to go down 50 pixels again. So that part is now completed. Okay, I'll just scroll down a bit more. All right, now we've created our title, we've created our picture, we've even drawn a line underneath the title. Now what we need to do is we need to list all the pizzas that the user had chosen. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to scroll through all of the items in the list and add them to our page one at a time. Now you don't want to just have all of the items added all at once. You want to make it so that they appear nicely. Okay, so if you just add them all at once, they'll appear on top of each other. So you've got to add the first item, then you've got to move down 25 points, then you've got to add the next item, then you've got to move down again, and so forth. So we want to use a loop to go through the items one at a time and add them to each instance. Okay, so for each line, oops, not for each line, sorry, print each line one at a time. Okay, and we're going to use a for loop. As I said, let's declare an integer int I equals 0. Okay, as long as we don't go higher than the number of pizzas, which if you recall is the number of items in the list. Okay, and we want to increase I one increment at a time, and now we can put in our loop. So I'm going to add quite a few comments now because there's some strange lines that you might see. So basically print by drawing dots on the page with a brush. That's effectively what, oh, not plus equals, sorry. Plus, there we go. Okay, print them by drawing as dots. Convert each item, oh, sorry, it's still a comment. Convert each item in the list box to a string. Use the constructed font class and start writing at the X and Y positions that we do. So I've got graphics.drawstring again. I don't want to have Batman's Pizza Shop. I want to have the item at the first position of my LST pizzas, and that's going to be equal to items at position I. Okay. Oops. See, items at position I dot to string. Okay, so I'm converting what I've got here in my index. Okay, oops, just put a space in there so it looks a bit neater. And that should have been lowercase. I think that should be fine actually. Index at position I to string. Oh, that's what I'm missing, sorry. Thought there was still an error. Just brackets after that. So now I've got that. Apologies for that. LST pieces dot items I dot to string. Okay, I don't want my font title. I just want my regular font. Okay, which is a slightly smaller font. It's going to be equal to starting at 10 again, and it's going to be current Y. Now this time I don't need to go down quite as far, so I'm only going to make it go down 25 points because I'm using a smaller font this time. Okay, and that literally just means next line. Okay, so no matter if I've got 1, 2 or 10 pizzas, this will add each item one at a time. So the first time it goes through, it's going to add item 0, then it will increment I, add it, move down a line, increment I to 1, add that one, move down a line, increment I to 2, print the next one, move down a line, increment item to 3, and keep going until it's run out of list items. Okay, after it's printed all of the pizzas, not pieces, okay, it's going to now ask us to move down one more time. Okay, so I'm just going to make it a bit nicer by saying, let's just go down one more blank line. Oops, don't want that. I just want that. Okay, so we're going to go down one more line. We're also going to extend the line a little bit. Okay, extend the line. And I'm going to cheat, rather than just add more dashes to that, for example, I'm going to just go line plus equals line. Okay, so basically I'm going to add that block of lines to what's already there, so it's going to be double the size now. Okay, a nice simple cheat there. Oops, that flies. Okay, and let's print that line. Okay, I might just cheat once more, and I will copy my graphics line and put another line underneath there. I've got print line, print font title, brush black 10, current Y. I won't go down 50 again, I'll keep it at 25. Okay, and now let's get a little bit more complicated and let's do our final total. So what we've done now is a picture, a title, a line, all of my pizzas, another line, and under here I want my final total, or like the total cost of the order for my user. Okay, so let's create a new string, and that's going to be called the final cost. It's going to be equal to the total cost, which is a variable we've been using earlier. We're going to convert it to a string using our little currency converter syntax cheat that we used before. F parentheses 2. Okay, we converted it to a currency format, and now we're going to print. Oops, I should have added that for you. Change the total cost to decimal currency. Good. Print the total order cost. Okay, and this is where we're going to use our red font. Okay, because we want to have a total, be really clear to that user at the end. Okay, so I'm going to add my eGraphics draw again. Oops. Okay, eGraphics draw string. I want it to say. Oh. I want it to say order. Okay, I want it to be using my order plus the number of pizzas plus pizzas dot total plus, just go on that next line for you, plus the final cost. Oops. Comma. Okay, so we've got order plus the number of pizzas plus pizzas total cost. Now that all that line is going to do, let's say I've got 10 pizzas and it was $20, it would say order 10 pizzas total $20. So those variables are being plugged in to where they needed to go. That's why that was there. Okay, now instead of the print font title, I want my print font total, and I want my brush to be red, so that my, not red K, red, so that my final total appears in big font, bright red. Okay, let's save that now. Okay, and let's actually go ahead and test. Now, according to this, I can't see any errors. It says no issues found just there. I'll click on play, and it'll hopefully start to build all of my program for me now. Okay, you can see that it loads my default one. I open up BatMeals, it's disappeared, it's opened my main project. If I click on small and I select add pizza, it's added the small pizza at $9. If I click on medium, it's added the medium at $9. It's also deselected the small and medium, the small button. I can move between these and it deselects them. I can also move between these and it does not deselect them because they are set as checkboxes. Okay, if I add a medium pizza with extras at 12, it's changed it from 12 to $12.50. If I add another one, it should change it to $13, which it's done as well. You can see I've got a little dollar bullet point there. If you don't like that, you can take that full stop out. I'm going to leave it there for now. And finally, I can cancel that and clear it. I can also add a couple more pizzas. I might just add some to make it a little bit clearer that I'm adding some random different ones, and I'm going to push print. Now what happens now is it brings up my print dialog box, okay, the default one that you see on all Windows platforms. I don't have a printer installed right here, but what I'm going to do is actually going to print it to a PDF. So when I print that now and press OK, it's actually printing now in the back of my in the background of this program. Okay, if it's printing somewhere, you'll see that it's got it. There it is. I'll just open it up and I'll drag it. You can see it now. It's printed using my Batman's Pizza Shop title. There's my little dashes. It's got my logo. It's got the 4 items that I added to my list box, followed by the double-sized line, followed by order, 4 pizzas, total 90.50 in red font. Okay, now I can close that one. I'll go back to my program. Just close this one. There you go. If I cancel that, add some different programs, I'll make it really long so you can see just how much it will be able to handle it. If I press print, I'll print it to a PDF yet again. Press OK. It's printed into the background. It will take a moment to actually compile that PDF for me. Okay. Just wait. We're nearly there. Must have just typed that number just then. I'm sure I actually printed that then. It didn't seem to actually pop up. Where's it going? According to this, it's still compiling right now. It might just be taking some time, apparently. We'll just leave that there. Hopefully you've got all of those working. I might just stop it in the background now. Oh, I think it's because I still had the other one open. My mistake. So I will leave it at that for you for now. You can see I've got POT bat order and I've got my print. I'll just quickly show you all these texts again so that you can copy them if you've missed any. We've got a try catch that allows us, by creating some new print dialog instances, it asks the user to press OK or cancel as needed. It also then creates the print page class, allowing us to do a few things. You'll see that we've created the concept of fonts and brushes, even a line to make it look nice. It's added my resource. It's creating different drawstrings, which basically means put something onto a piece of paper. Okay, it's got the ability to scroll through that list box. It repeats them as necessary and executes that instruction. Okay, so I do know that was a slightly longer one. That is the final lesson on this Batman utility project page. I hope you've enjoyed it. I will just finish off by replaying the whole program. You can see when I click on play, I've got my Comic Sans form now, okay, which allowed me to type. I can bold, italic. It's also counting the number of words and clear. Click on utility belt, I go back to my Gotham page where I can now enter in some radius fields and surface area, and it calculates it for me. Click on the BatMeals, which we just did. Then there's the Batmobile one, which I can set to be specific laps. It automatically starts creating my racer for me as well. Okay, so I'm just going to close those now. I'll stop executing my code. I hope you enjoyed all that Batman utility project. Please feel free to rewind, watch these as many times as you need while you're working on your major projects. Thanks guys, good luck on your tasks.